According to the Wall Street Journal, the nation's top 23 banks and investment firms are poised to pay a record $140 billion with a B dollars in bonuses to their top executives. Now, many of those banks got bailout money. Some of them were able to pay it back, of course, leaving many to wonder if they're on a road to repeat their past mistakes. Joining me now from Clute, Texas, Representative Ron Paul of Texas and the author of End the Fed. Great to see you this morning.
Thank you. Nice to be with you.
And Congressman, it just seemed like yesterday that we were talking about these firms on the brink of collapse. We poured a record amount of money, taxpayer money, into rescuing these firms in the form of that bailout. And now we're talking record profits. At the same time, we're not seeing that same wealth trickle out to Main Street. So what's going on?
Well, they take care of their own. There's a great deal of influence in Washington from Wall Street. And I think most people have known about it, but they're really coming to the understanding how it really works. If things are going well, when the bubble is being formed and the Fed makes easy credit, a lot of people make a lot of money. But that's doomed to fail. The bubble bursts, and rightfully the thing to do then is to put people in jail if they committed fraud, and the people who are bankrupt, let them go bankrupt. Well, we didn't do that. Very little fraud was prosecuted, and the people who were supposed to go bankrupt got bailed out. Some went bankrupt. If they didn't have enough influence like Lehman Brothers, they went bankrupt. But somebody like Goldman Sachs, they're in a much better position, so they really got the bailout, and they're making tons of money.
Right, so I know you were against
that is so bad.
Well, you were against the bailout in the first place. You were somebody who said you didn't think you wanted the chips to fall where they may, and there were very convincing arguments on the opposite side that if we let this happen, this might be something from which we might not recover. Is this how you expected things to be a year later after the bailout, record profits for some of the top banks?
Well, I wouldn't have been able to predict and say what the profits would be, but no, I'm not surprised there's been a recovery. I think markets work this way. The stock market has recovered 50%, but a lot of times that has happened. That happened in the 1930s. So these same banks right now that are making tons of money and stashing it away, they're not out of the woods when the next downturn occurs. So I don't think it's over, but we have to wonder who's pulling the strings. You know, it is said that the Congress didn't have enough strings attached to the money they were giving away, but I think the strings go in the other directions. I think Wall Street has the strings on Washington, and they pull and do what they want, and that's where the corruption is. They control the monetary system. That's why it's so important that we find out how the Fed deals with banks secretly and how they deal with international finances and international central banks and other governments. That's where a lot of shenanigans are going on, and they're hysterical if they think the Congress is going to find out exactly what they do behind the scenes and why some of these companies and some of these banks, do so well while the average guy on Main Street gets clobbered. But this is characteristic of the monetary system we have. This is not a surprise.
Right, but in the past you have been against regulation. You've been a free market person who, libertarian free market who thinks that, really you've got to let business go where it goes. In this situation, though, there were no strings attached, and as we understand it, there's a big lobbying effort underway to sort of water down any future regulations. Is this an example where maybe we do need some regulations? Because it doesn't look like in some of these instances big business is going to police itself.
Well, the regulations has to be on the cause of the problem. The cause of the problem is easy credit, so the regulation has to be on the Federal Reserve. Then if things get out of whack, there's still regulations. It's not like there wouldn't be any regulations, but the regulations come in a different manner. They come through bankruptcy. We didn't permit the bankruptcies, and we did the bailing out. We perpetuated the problem by inflating the currency and bailing out the people that were benefiting. So fraud is a very significant problem that government should be involved in. You should deal with that. But the government's committing the fraud when they create this money and deal with their special interests. It's a fraudulent monetary system. They run a counterfeiting operation. So yes, the regulations have to be there, but we can't allow the central bank to create the bubble and say that it is unstable and we can prevent the problems by regulations. I think it's all twisted around.
Well, one of the questions,
the regulations have to come first by preventing Pardon me?
Oh, I was just going to say one of the regulations would be that has been tossed around out there is whether or not we need to have some sort of cap on executive compensation or taxes on executive compensation to limit it. You were against taxing it when the whole AIG bonus debacle was happening. What do you think now? Is it acceptable to you that there's billions and billions of dollars in bonuses being set aside for executives?
Yeah, this is a terrible position for me to be in, because if it's taxpayers' money, we have responsibilities and we should restrict it. Say, huge benefits for General Motors. This would be criminal because it's the taxpayers' money. At the same time, now it's a mixed deal. They get our money, they return it, they claim they're private, and now we're talking about regulating them. That introduces a whole new problem of the power of government to come in and start having wage and price controls and bonus controls and media control. Who knows what it is? So it's very, very bad. That's why once you embark on a program like this, you get into a lot more trouble. One problem causes two new problems. That's why you have to stop it cold, stop inflation, and rely on free market principles. But right now there is no easy answer. But my easiest answer I can give is, if it's government money and they so-called own something, yes, we have a responsibility of dealing with that and getting it back into the private sector as quickly as possible, and quit all this bailing out and quit all this inflation, quit all this big government stuff that created this monster, and we could get back on our feet again. If we wouldn't have done anything a year ago, yes, there would have been a lot of bankruptcies. But it'd be all over now. We'd be going back to work again, and people have started saving, and that is very good. But none of this is behind us. All we have done is prolong the agony, and very soon people are going to realize that even in spite of all these huge profits, Wall Street is still a shaky place to be. Even though the big guys are going to rip us off and get away with billions of dollars, the system is not going to be revived. We're not going to revive the dollar reserve standard around the financial markets that has existed for 35 years. We have to devise a new system, and right now we're only playing games with what we have.
All right. Congressman Ron Paul, great perspective this morning. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
So we've been following